Tonight, I went to Walmart by myself. I'm a 19-year-old female, 5'4" and 125 pounds. Not very big or intimidating. I really wanted my sister to come with me, as I just felt kinda weird about going alone. She refused, so that leads us to what happened next. It was around 7 p.m. when I got there. I only had to get a few groceries. As I was headed to the self-checkouts, I walked past a man. He looked to be around my age, around 5'10" and maybe 200 pounds. We made eye contact and I gave him a smile, as that's just what I do whenever I make eye contact with strangers. After walking past him, he started to follow me. It sketched me out a little until he followed me to the self-checkouts. There were at least 4 to 5 open ones, but he chose the one right next to me. I was a little more weirded out at this point, but just tried to scan my stuff as quickly as possible. I heard him mumbling something, but I said nothing, as I was hoping he just wouldn't talk to me. Then he came up beside me, way too close for comfort. He asked if I had a name, and asked if I was with friends or alone, and then he asked if I wanted to chill. The whole time he was speaking, he spoke low and mumbled his words. He kept coming closer and closer to me. I'm already an anxious person by nature, but this genuinely scared me. He inched his way around to the front of the self-checkout so that I could no longer scan anything. Keep in mind, the entire time that he was asking me questions, I didn't look at him, nor did I stop scanning my items. Once in front of me, he asked if he could have a kiss on the cheek. He was so close that he honestly could have dove in and gave me one. I was shaking, and I told him no. He asked for my Snapchat multiple times in different ways. Every time I told him no, and I asked him to please move and let me finish scanning my items. He finally walked away and grabbed a few of his items. The entire time that I paid for my groceries, my hands were shaking and I was trying not to cry. I may sound dramatic about this, but this was one of the scariest interactions that I've ever had. Sure, I've had some weird guys hit on me, but no one has ever invaded my personal space this heavily and made me feel as anxious as this man did. I'm going to work on becoming less nervous and more assertive, so when things like this happen, I can speak up more. I had a weird feeling about going out alone tonight, and this may have been why. He was my first kiss, and also my first abusive relationship. We first started dating when I was a preteen. He was super attentive and protective of me from the very beginning. It wasn't until the 5th month when I started noticing the alarms going off loudly in my head. He had taken me on a cute roller skate date, and we had sat down for a bit to take a break when 2 of his friends showed up. At this point, the vibe from him was no longer safe. The smile he had 5 minutes beforehand was replaced with a look of pure hatred. He switched into this odd predator mode and told me to kiss him with tongue in front of his friends. I told him that I was just not ready to do something like that, and especially not in front of other people. He didn't really like that answer, and he pulled my face up to his and then started forcing his tongue deep into my mouth. I was a pretty small girl, but luckily I was able to push him away long enough to start running towards a more populated part of the skate rink. I told him to stay away from me while I waited for my mom to pick me up. I didn't tell my mom what happened because I was in complete shock and confused. I was young, and I didn't want to get in trouble for kissing a boy, so I decided to just ignore him until I was able to process everything. About a week of successfully avoiding him at school passes when he's worked up the nerve to try something yet again. He found me surrounded by a group of my friends and decided to try his luck. I didn't even notice that he was there until we were practically bumping elbows. Being that close to him definitely put me on edge, and I nearly crapped myself when he started speaking to me. It was all pointless small talk until he realized I wasn't in the forgiving mood, and then his mood totally shifted like before, and he just started staring at me like I was the most disgusting human on the planet. I was holding one of those portable CD players when he yanked it out of my hands and started trying to shove it in his bag in an attempt to steal it. I yelled at him to give it back and tried prying it from him, which he apparently took offense to because he punched me in the face with enough force to drop me to the ground. I obviously started crying and we were both sent to the principal's office. Now, his dad was the football coach in that Midwestern community, so he was able to talk the principal into only requiring his son to attend detention once for his punishment. We didn't really see each other too much after that, and thankfully, we ended up going to different high schools. Then I ran into him at my Taco Bell drive-thru my sophomore year. I didn't really realize he was the cashier until I was at the window about to pay, when he made awkward eye contact. I pretended to not recognize him and hurried with the transaction until I was able to speed away. Unfortunately, he saw our chance meeting as some kind of sign of fate, and he attempted to send the equivalent of a "you up" text to my Facebook. Unfortunately, I can never unsee his ultra cringy attempt at flirting. "I think I saw you at Taco Bell today. I was the cashier. You're pretty cute still, and I was wondering if you wanted to send some booty pics." My response was an immediate block. I made sure to let my sisters know all about the incident because I just had to tell someone. If I had known then just how dangerous this teenage boy would become, I wouldn't have taken any of the incidents so lightly. But I'm not a psychic. After some awkward laughs, I moved on with my life and continued to date less crappy people. Fast forward to today, when my sister sends me an article from her local news report featuring my dear first boyfriend's picture. Apparently, he decided to stab someone in the throat at a popular venue when they tried defending a woman that he was physically attacking. We dated nearly 10 years ago, but I still can't shake the feeling that I totally dodged a bullet. It's a really strange feeling when you realize that dangerous people are weaving in and out of your life without you even knowing before it's too late sometimes. According to the comments in the article, he had a really bad habit of assaulting the women in his life and had a history with obsessive stalking. I imagine justice will be served pretty swiftly due to the manner of the crimes and the overwhelming evidence supporting a case against this psychopath. Hopefully I don't cross paths with him ever again. I'm 20 years old and a front desk agent at a mid-range hotel in a small East Coast city. I'm a full-time student at the university, and I live alone in a one-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood made up of mostly college students. At the hotel, I've had to deal with a fair amount of unpleasant or creepy people, since a young woman in a customer service job seems like an easy target. I was used to old ladies yelling at me or inappropriately aged men making remarks on my appearance like, "You just have the most adorable smile. I'm sure you're a heartbreaker." And I've usually been able to deflect them. When I work on weekdays, I'm always on the 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. shift where we handle the check-ins. It was a slow night where we only had 28 check-ins to deal with, and by 8 p.m., my coworker Mindy and I had done all of our tasks and were leaning over the front desk, chatting and watching the news, which blared perpetually from the TVs in the lobby's breakfast area. We only really had a handful of check-ins left, so we had kicked back with our deck of cards and Chinese takeout all over the desk. A younger man checked in, and I remember thinking he was pretty cute. He had neat blonde hair, a boyish smile, and a weak chin, and he was wearing khakis and a quarter-zip fleece. We had a pretty regular interaction, save for him making a lot of eye contact and smiling, and then he went to his room. About a half an hour later, he came back down and he asked us where he could get some alcohol. We told him the convenience store across the street had beer and wine, and he and I joked a little bit about how it was closing soon, so he better make a run for it if he wants any. When he came back, he slid a 40-ounce across the desk toward me. With my customer service smile of vague cluelessness, I said, "What's this?"
"It's for you."
He leaned against the desk. Front desk agents have to stand up, so the top tier of the desk was about chest height, and when he leaned over, he was right in my face. "Oh, I can't drink right now, but thank you. I think you should be the one to enjoy that." He was pretty insistent, and I agreed that I would drink it after work. I then went into the office and I put it with Mindy's stuff. She'd probably appreciate the free alcohol, but I didn't feel too good about drinking a 40 from some too friendly random guy. He hung around the desk for quite a while. Mindy is the type of person who can keep someone talking for hours, even if they don't want to, because her brain never runs out of content and she treats everyone like she's known them for years. This meant that this guy, who I'll call Mr. Hanson, wasn't going to be leaving anytime soon. They were talking about politics, and I heard him throw around some vaguely conservative rhetoric, but I pretended to just be caught up in my homework. He kept glancing over at me and trying to smile, but it was getting late. My feet hurt. All I wanted was to be at home in my underwear rolling a spliff with my cats all around me, instead of allowing some 35-year-old to think that he could flirt with me. At one point, Mindy had to make a phone call, so he slid down the desk toward me. I then looked up with my customer service smile right back on.
"So, go to a small liberal arts college, do you?"
My uniform shirt was short-sleeved, so you could see a couple of my tattoos on my arm, and I also have a nose piercing. So I assumed that and the music theory homework that I was working on informed his guess. No, I go to the university of the state we're in. The city's main attraction, besides its hippies and breweries, was my college. A pretty good state school, so it was somewhat surprising that he didn't assume that I went there instead. He was sizing me up, and I just absolutely prayed that Mindy would be done with her phone call soon. But it was her long-distance boyfriend, and she had wandered into the back office to talk to him. He started talking about his experiences at his Southern University, and how he was a veteran but got injured. So he lived off pension or something and didn't want to work and was just touring New England right now. The conversation somehow turned to his love life. But I'm pretty sure I was so spaced out by that point, thinking about how I was going to eat at least an entire frozen pizza when I got home, that I didn't pay attention to what he was saying until it was clear he asked me a question.
"Would you do that?"
He asked. Would I do what?
"Get freaked out because I don't work. A lot of the chicks I date think it's weird."
I remember exactly what he said because I thought it was weird how he called girls chicks and how he spat it out. I laughed nervously and said, "I don't know. I don't think so." The hotel was on the smaller side, and I was very aware of the fact that Mindy and I were the only employees in the building right then. He began to ask me probing questions about my love life along the lines of,
"Are you single? No? Well, why do you like him? Why would you like him if he moved away? Do you think you'll be with him for a long time?"
That last question really freaked me out, and I wish I had asked him to stop asking me personal questions like that. But I'm polite to a fault, even when I'm not working. So I just kept smiling and laughing and giving friendly but impersonal answers.
"You're very warm,"
he told me.
"Have you ever worked with kids?"
He talked about how a lot of the girls that he dates, back wherever he was from, Ohio maybe, are really shallow and materialistic, and how I seemed like such a down-to-earth girl, and I was such a cutie. And did I know about the girl next door trope? I'm like the girl next door, but cool, he told me. I imagine he was referring to my tattoos again. Guest reviews are hugely important in the hospitality business, so at this hotel we're strictly trained to let guests treat you however they want. You just can't upset them. It probably would have been reasonable at this point to ask him to leave the front desk, but I felt so helpless, and being assertive with people at work is so against my instinct that it didn't even cross my mind to say anything. Because of this, I had to just stay there listening to this guy and politely accepting all of his compliments. I assumed he typically got away with it, since he was attractive and clean-cut with a slight baby face. I kept praying for the phone to ring and for someone to ask me to perform some kind of complicated long task so I could get away. But the only time it did was when a neighboring hotel called to ask if we had printer ink. Mindy was on the phone in the back until eventually Sam, our night auditor, finally arrived, and I realized that this guy had monopolized the entire last 2 hours of my shift, trying to get me to sleep with him. Hoping Mr. Hansen would take this as a cue to leave, I went to the office and I got my coat in my backpack. When I came back out to witness Sam count the drawer, Mr. Hansen was still standing there. "Well, I hope you have a good night," I said to him.
Are you walking out this way?
He gestured down the hallway, which led to all of the rooms as well as the door to the back parking lot. I told him I had parked out front, which thankfully was true, and I was able to get to my car successfully. I sat there for a while responding to the text that had piled up on my phone while Mr. Hansen was diverting my attention. It was about a 10-minute drive from the hotel to my apartment downtown, and I noticed that a car was pulling out of the parking lot at the same time I was. It wasn't Mindy's car. She always stayed an extra half hour after her shift technically ended, but there was another hotel next door, so I assumed it was just an employee or guest there. I wasn't too concerned when the Nissan was right behind me, but I noticed it had Florida plates, which isn't too abnormal. A lot of the rental cars around here do. I take a really weird way to get across town after work, which involves cutting through the University Hospital's enormous needlessly parking lot, which spans about 3 blocks. It wasn't necessarily a quicker route, but I liked how there were never any cars there this time of night, and I could also go as fast as I wanted to. The parking lot, as I said, is needlessly complex, which means stoplights which all turn into blinking yellows after 9 p.m. There's also medians and grassy areas placed seemingly at random, and a lot of twists and turns which all go to very specific buildings and exits. I'm explaining this parking lot in so much detail just to express just how strange it was that this rental car was following me this pretty nonsensical route. It's not a way that any kind of maps app would take you, since there's more straightforward streets surrounding the parking lot. I initially assumed that it was just someone going to the hospital, since it was the only major medical facility in about a 100-mile radius, and the only well-funded one in an even larger area. A lot of people and their families stayed at the hotel who were there for the hospital, so the momentary explanation I gave myself seemed pretty feasible. It was maintaining a polite distance, but it was one of those cars with the ultra-bright LED lights, which were totally blinding in my mirrors, so the car was pretty impossible to ignore. It followed me around each turn, and at one point, just to see, I went in a big circle around the south half of the lot. Surely enough, the other car made the same exact circle. My explanation, which was already crumbling, dissolved completely when I drove past the entrances to the both main hospital and the emergency room. Now, steady consumption of crime shows, scary movies, and true crime Reddit pages have made me a very paranoid person. So it was at that point where I picked up that something was probably wrong. I figured I should avoid going back to my real apartment, especially since it's practically begging to be broken into, with a lot of windows and a very old front door that opens directly to the outside. Obviously at this point, I was relatively certain that it was Mr. Hansen. Like I said, I've had guests cross the line before, but I had never been followed or particularly fixated on. A hotel receptionist, even if they're good looking, is someone you have a couple of brief and pleasant interactions with, but you don't really think about them when they're not there. I decided my best bet would be to get back to the hotel. I looped back through town, the Nissan following me at a polite distance. I'll reiterate, he was trying to be as discreet as he could, keeping as far behind me as he could while still keeping me in sight. He wasn't trying to intimidate me so much as, I'm not sure, monitor me maybe? Whatever his reasons, I was still afraid. I abandoned the use of turn signals and totally sped back to the hotel, calling the hotel along the way and asking Sam if he and possibly the security guard that we contracted to patrol the property after 11 p.m. could then meet me at the front door. When I arrived back at the hotel, I pulled around to the front, where Sam and the security guard were then standing near the parking lot. I explained the situation and the security guard went out the back door to look for the car and its driver. When he came back, he said that he spoke to a preppy blonde guy outside who was coming inside. He had said that he had just been out to smoke a cigarette and was now returning to his room. Security had asked him if he had seen a Nissan with Florida plates, and he said that he hadn't. There really wasn't much more that we could do at that point. Luckily for me, I wouldn't be working for a couple of days after Mr. Hansen was set to check out, and we were fully sold that weekend, so he couldn't extend his stay even if he wanted to. All guests are asked upon check-in to write down make, model, and color and plate of their vehicle on their registration card. So just to confirm, I decided to pull out his registration card. Sure enough, silver Nissan Altima with Florida plates. Here's exactly what he wrote on his TripAdvisor review.
Absolutely great stay. Room was clean, breakfast was hot, and that's really all I can ask for. The best thing about this hotel, though, was the staff. I had a lovely time with the two ladies at the front desk, especially a very sweet girl. Hope to be seeing you sooner rather than later.
So, Mr. Hansen, I don't think we'll be meeting anytime soon because my manager put you on the banned list. And thank God he did. One summer night, my roommate and I were both sitting on the couch of our living room talking and watching Supernatural. Two ladies in our 20s, we felt safe with just the unlocked screen door closed a few feet away from us as I sat facing the window to our backyard. Now, I'll say this, we weren't completely naive. We had the back porch light on and lived in a townhouse facing a ravine. So for anyone to get back there, they would have to walk past either 10 other houses on the left side or 5 other houses on the right. It wasn't the safest area around as it housed mostly students from our nearby university. But hey, we all knew the dealers by name. They were our buddies. This is also why my roommate didn't really freak out right away when I began yelling. She thought that I was just joking around with a drunk friend. So the stage is set. Now to the creepy part. I was sitting facing the window, and my roommate faced me, so her back was to it. I was the only person to have actually seen him. At first, I thought my mind was just playing tricks on me. I had smoked a little of the devil's lettuce earlier that evening. Just at the edge of the window, I could see the smiling of a middle-aged man. But before I could register what I was seeing, the face then backed up out of view. Not wanting to freak out my roommate just in case it was nothing, I went silent and got up to look out the back door that was to the left of the window. And there, I saw an image that has been burned into my brain to this day, 5 years later. An obese old man wearing nothing but a black flat cap, then started walking up the 2 steps of my porch toward my unlocked screen door. I then yelled at the top of my lungs something like, "Get the heck out of here! I'm calling the cops!" The part that stuck with me is the fact that he just held up his hand in an appeasing gesture, and kind of silently chuckled as he backed up, a big grin on his face the whole time. Like it was all just some funny misunderstanding that he was naked in my backyard and about to come into my house. My roommate never saw him, which I'm glad for, but she got kinda mad at me that I didn't tell her what I suspected was going on at the time. We called the cops and about 3 officers showed up to the house and searched the area, but they didn't find anyone. The part that still really freaks me out is just how long he was standing out there listening to us. I don't really know if he would have tried to open the door, but the fact that he could have just terrified me. I rationalize it now, thinking he just wanted a reaction, and I'm glad I gave him an angry one instead of a scared one. Who really knows what would have happened if I reacted scared? Anyway, hopefully I don't encounter any more scary old naked men. Now, this all began when I broke up with my boyfriend of about 1 year about a month ago. There's several reasons why I broke up with him, but the main reason is because I didn't like the way he was treating me. I behaved like I was his property, and he also called me really terrible, vulgar names. He was also physically abusing me. I could no longer handle it, so I finally broke up with him. Everything seemed okay until he started calling me and sending me venomous text messages. Texts that were like, "You're just a cheap whore no one should care about," and "I hate you. I don't know why I ever went out with you in the first place." I eventually deleted and blocked his number. His number is from one of those apps, and he told me that he had no social media. About a week ago, I saw him at my college and he saw me, and I'll never forget the expression of rage mixed with insanity that was all over his face as he came towards me. I ran faster than I had ever run in a long time. A few days later, I saw him sitting in his truck in the parking lot of the college. That's when my best friend and I decided that it would be best to then report him to public safety. When we did, I learned all sorts of things that I never knew. That he either lied to me about his name, or that he also went to the same college as I did. I'm absolutely terrified that he's going to be there again. All I can really do is just hope he won't come terribly close to me. The story takes place during my senior year of high school, when I still lived at home with my mom. It was a Saturday, so I slept in, as any teenager normally does. And my mom left for work early that morning, so I had spent my day at home all alone. I decided to do some cleaning around the house when I realized we were out of paper towels. So I decided to go down to the garage to get some, since that's usually where we kept extra things. My mom lives in a 3-story townhome where the main floor is on the second floor, and the first floor is just a small entryway at the bottom of the stairs and 2 doors. One is the front door, and the other one leads to the garage. So I walked down the stairs and opened the door to the garage, going to flip on the lights but then realizing I didn't need to. The garage door was wide open and letting in a ton of daylight. Maybe to some this wouldn't be a big deal, but my mom lives in a not great part of town and is pretty adamant about closing the garage door when she leaves. I remember feeling really weird about it since it was so unusual, but chalked it up to my mom just not realizing it, or maybe something had rolled under the door so the automatic sensor couldn't completely close, and maybe my mom just drove away without realizing. I then looked over into the dark corner of the garage where the boxes were stacked and the paper towels were stored. For some reason, I couldn't get myself to walk over there and grab them. I do have a slight fear of the dark, so I figured that caused my sudden hesitation. I just stood in the doorway and pressed the garage door button on the wall and watched it close completely. I made sure that nothing blocked it from closing, and I waited a good 10 seconds before leaving to make sure that it was really shut this time. I switched off the light, walked back inside, and then locked the door to the garage. I took maybe about 2 steps up the stairs before I heard boxes tumbling, scuffling of feet, and the audible sound of someone hitting their hand against the garage door opener, and then the mechanical sound of the garage door actually opening. I noped it up the rest of the flight of stairs, then just stood at the top step for probably about 20 minutes, just totally shaking. It wasn't until my mom got home asking me why the garage door was left open that I went back down. Other than my mom's car now in the garage, it's completely empty, except for the boxes in the corner where we typically store extra things for the house. I looked and saw that the boxes were toppled over, and I had to explain the situation to my mom. I'm really glad that my gut told me not to go into the dark corner of the garage. And to whoever decided to creep in there, please just stay away. Hey everyone, thank you for taking the time to listen to today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you have your own personal scary story or experience, be sure to submit them to my website at southerncannibal.com. Stay safe everyone, and remember to always stay hungry.